Have you ever known the bitter sting of betrayal? Not the trivial disappointments of daily life, but the soul-wrenching agony of watching someone you once trusted, perhaps even loved, turn against you. A friend, a spouse, a sibling, a child. Someone who once walked beside you now stands with the enemy, believing lies spun in shadows, treating you as a stranger, or worse, an adversary. You search for answers in the wreckage, wondering, how did this happen? What did I do wrong? But the deeper you look, the more the truth eludes you, slipping through your fingers like sand. Let me tell you something, dear soul. This attack is not merely against you, it is against the light within you. It is not just the whispers of men that have turned hearts cold, but the unseen battle that rages in realms beyond our sight. The enemy does not war against those already ensnared, but against those who still walk in truth. And yet, let me give you hope. God is not silent. He has seen what was done to you in secret. He has heard the false accusations, and he has counted your every tear. He is not a passive observer in your suffering. He is a warrior, a defender, a redeemer. The wicked plot against the righteous and gnash their teeth at them, but the Lord laughs at the wicked, for he knows their day is coming. Psalm 37, 12-13. If you have ever felt abandoned, take heart. God has already begun his work in your deliverance. The same God who parted the Red Sea, who shut the mouths of lions, who raised the dead, is at work in your life even now. He does not leave his children to the mercy of deceivers. Today I want to reveal to you 5 ways in which God acts when a narcissist turns people against you. 5 divine strategies by which he exposes deception, breaks chains, restores what was lost, and brings beauty from ashes. Each of these is not merely a lesson but a promise, an unshakable truth that no betrayal, no slander, no force of darkness can overcome. But before we continue, let me ask you this. Do you believe that God is working on your behalf even now? If you do, type in the comments, God is revealing the truth to me. Let this be your declaration of faith. Prepare your heart, for the truth is about to unfold. What was hidden will be revealed. What was stolen will be restored. And what was meant for evil, God will turn for good. Now, let us begin. 1. God reveals the true nature of relationships. Have you ever wondered, why do the people you love so easily believe lies about you? Why didn't they come to you first to hear the truth before turning away? This is the painful question that lingers in the heart of the betrayed. You replay conversations, past moments, searching for a reason, a turning point, anything to explain why someone who once walked beside you now stands against you. The wound cuts deep, not only because of the slander, but because of who chose to believe it. You thought your bond was stronger than manipulation. You believed they knew your heart well enough to recognize deception. But now you find yourself isolated, rejected by those who once called you family, who once called you friend. Let me tell you this. Any relationship built on deception will crumble. It may look strong, even righteous for a season, but it stands on sinking sand. And in time, what has been concealed in darkness will be brought into the light. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. Narcissists do not destroy relationships through open confrontation. They work in whispers, in carefully placed half-truths, in the slow erosion of trust. They present themselves as the victim, subtly portraying you as the aggressor. They distort events to fit their narrative, making you seem unreasonable or even dangerous. They poison the minds of those closest to you, ensuring that by the time you realize what's happening, you are already surrounded by doubt and betrayal. At first, their words sound wise, their concern appears genuine. They know exactly what to say, how to say it, and whom to say it to. But beneath this carefully crafted persona lies something much darker. Their kindness is calculated. Their compliments are weapons in disguise. Their trust is given only to be broken, leaving you alone, confused, and questioning everything. And then you ask yourself, why didn't they see through it? How could they not know my heart? This chaos is not by chance. It is intentional. A narcissist's greatest weapon is not their words, but their ability to control perception. They rewrite history, manipulate emotions, and frame themselves as the misunderstood hero while casting you as the villain. The result? Even people who once loved you begin to doubt what they once knew to be true. This is the power of gaslighting. But hear this: God is a God of truth. He does not allow deception to reign forever. Though it may seem for a time that the narcissist has succeeded, their illusion will not last. The light of God always breaks through the darkness. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. God's justice is not always immediate, but it is always certain. At first, the signs may seem small. A contradiction in their story, an unguarded moment where their mask slips, a sudden change in their demeanor. These are not coincidences. They are signs from God revealing the truth. You may notice people who once doubted you begin to question the narcissist's actions. Their lies start to unravel. Unexpected events arise that expose their true nature in ways they cannot control. As you draw near to God, clarity replaces confusion. The fog lifts, and what once seemed complex now becomes simple. The Holy Spirit sharpens your discernment, giving you wisdom where there was once doubt. You begin to see things as they truly are, not through the distorted lens of deception, but through the clarity of God's truth. God may use a sermon, a conversation, or a scripture to open your eyes. Suddenly what was hidden is now exposed in the light. Truth is freeing, but it also requires bravery. Many people see the truth but refuse to act. Fear keeps them bound to relationships that God has already called them out of. They fear losing people they love. They fear confrontation. They fear standing alone. But hear this: it is far better to stand alone in God's truth than to be surrounded by deception. If God is revealing the true nature of certain relationships in your life, do not ignore it. Do not excuse behavior that consistently wounds you. Do not stay entangled in manipulation simply because it is familiar. Do not hold on to what God is calling you to release. When God exposes deception, it is not to harm you, it is to protect you. I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. Isaiah 42:16. God does not only reveal deception, He leads you out of it. And the moment you see the truth is the moment you begin your journey to freedom. Have you ever lost a relationship because of lies spread by a narcissist? Share your experience in the comments below. Your testimony could bring clarity and healing to someone else. But do not be afraid. God does not just expose lies. He does not merely reveal the truth and leave you standing in the ruins. No, He is a God of action, and when He begins His work, He does not stop at revelation. He breaks the chains of control. In the next section, we will see how God dismantles the narcissist's hold over your life. Stay with me. Your journey to freedom is only beginning. 2. God breaks the narcissist's control. You may not have realized it, but someone has been trying to control you for a long time. At first, it didn't seem like control. It felt like concern, guidance, even love. The words spoken to you were wrapped in kindness, yet they subtly chipped away at your confidence. Their approval felt like security, but it came at the cost of your freedom. And slowly, without even noticing, you stopped trusting your own judgment. This is how narcissists operate. Not by taking your power outright, but by making you willingly surrender it. But hear this, God never created you to be controlled by anyone but Him. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. God has not called you to live in confusion, walking on eggshells, constantly second-guessing yourself. That is not love, it is manipulation. That is not wisdom, it is control. And when the time is right, God steps in to break the narcissist's hold over you. A narcissist does not demand control from the beginning. They gain it slowly. They earn your trust through flattery and attention. They create an illusion that they are exactly what you need. They subtly make you dependent on their approval. At first, they uplift you. Then, the encouragement turns into criticism cloaked as concern. The confidence they once built in you is dismantled piece by piece until you question your own reality. This is not just manipulation, it is a spiritual attack. For God is not a God of confusion, but of peace. 1 Corinthians 14:33. If a relationship consistently leaves you feeling anxious, uncertain, and mentally drained, it is not of God. And when the time is right, He will act to set you free. God delivers His people in different ways. Sometimes He acts suddenly, an event, a revelation, an undeniable moment that exposes everything. Other times, He works gradually, peeling back layers of deception until you see clearly. You may begin to feel a deep unrest in your spirit. The words that once confused you lose their power over you. The guilt that kept you bound begins to lift. This is God awakening your soul. And when you start to wake up, the narcissist knows they are losing control. That is when the battle intensifies. When a narcissist senses their grip slipping, they do not retreat, they escalate. They accuse you of being ungrateful, cruel, or selfish. They play the victim, making you feel guilty for pulling away. They use fear and shame to manipulate you back into their grasp. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10, do not fall for it. When God breaks a chain, it cannot be reforged. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah 41:10. What once held you captive no longer has power over you. The confusion lifts and suddenly everything makes sense. God has stepped in, and the stronghold is crumbling. Now the question is no longer whether God will act. He already is. The question is, will you trust Him? The enemy will whisper, you will never be free. You need them. You will be alone. But remember, the enemy is a liar. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. God is not just revealing the truth. He is setting you free. He is breaking the chains, tearing down the walls, and calling you out of oppression and into His peace. If you believe that God is delivering you from manipulation, hit the like button to declare your faith. But when God begins to free you, the narcissist does not give up. They resist, they scheme, they escalate their lies. So what does God do next? Stay with me as we uncover the next step in God's divine plan, His protection over you. Third, God protects you and removes the narcissist's influence. Did you know when a narcissist loses control, they become more dangerous than ever? They do not walk away quietly. They do not surrender with grace. Instead, they fight harder, using every tactic they can to regain dominance. They spread more lies, determined to destroy your reputation. They turn others against you, ensuring you are isolated. They use fear, guilt, and manipulation, trying to pull you back into their grip. But here is what they do not understand. When God decides to protect his children, no weapon formed against them will prosper. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Isaiah 54:17. The narcissist may scheme, they may plot, but their plans will fail. Because when God steps in, their influence begins to crumble. There are two ways God works in this situation. He exposes them, or he creates distance. First, God exposes the narcissist. God is a God of truth, and he does not allow deception to stand forever. The narcissist's lies begin to unravel. Their manipulation starts to backfire. People who once believed them begin to see their true nature. At first, it may happen in small ways, a contradiction in their story, a moment of unguarded behavior that reveals their hypocrisy. But over time, the truth becomes undeniable. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. What once seemed untouchable begins to collapse before your eyes. 2. God creates distance. Sometimes God removes the narcissist by physically separating you from them. A job change, a relocation, a sudden shift in relationships. What may feel like rejection is often God's divine protection. He is shutting a door before they can return. They may lose interest in you and move on to a new target. They may attempt to reach out, but find every path blocked. God's hand is at work, creating a divine barrier between you and the one who sought to destroy you. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. Isaiah 55:8-9. What felt like an abrupt ending was actually God shielding you from something you couldn't yet see. Letting go of the past. But here's where many struggle, letting go. Even after God has removed the narcissist, there is a temptation to hold on to the past. What if they've changed? Or what if I'm being too harsh? Maybe I should reach out one last time. But do not let nostalgia keep you bound to what God has freed you from. Remember Lot's wife. God delivered her from destruction, but when she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Genesis 19:26. She could not let go of the past, and it cost her everything. When God removes someone, do not return to them. If he has closed a door, walk forward in faith. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. Psalm 91:4. The narcissist's influence over you is over. Their words no longer hold power. Their threats are empty. Their manipulation has lost its grip. You are no longer their prisoner. You are under the protection of the Almighty God. The enemy tried to keep you in chains, but God has broken them. He has gone before you, making the path straight, leading you into freedom. If you know someone trapped in a toxic relationship, share this video. Your action could be the key to their freedom. And after all the pain and loss, do you wonder if you will ever regain what was stolen from you? The good news is, God doesn't just rescue you, he restores you. 4. God restores what was lost. You think you have lost too much, but God says, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. Joel 2:25. You have lost time. You have lost relationships. You have lost pieces of yourself. Maybe you look at the wreckage left behind and wonder, will my life ever be whole again? Will I ever feel joy again? Is restoration even possible? Let me tell you this. With God, nothing is ever truly lost. What was stolen, He can return. What was broken, He can heal. What was taken from you, He can replace with something even greater. He will give a crown of beauty for ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Isaiah 61:3. You are not at the end of your story. God is still writing your restoration. The enemy's plan has always been destruction. He tried to steal your peace. He tried to break your spirit. He tried to convince you that your best days were behind you. But God's plan is redemption. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. God does not just take you out of the storm. He restores what was lost in it. Restoration is not always immediate. It happens in phases as God rebuilds your life with His perfect timing. 1. God restores your identity. One of the first things a narcissist steals is your sense of self. They distort how you see yourself. They make you doubt your worth. They convince you that their approval defines you. But when God steps in, He restores the truth of who you are. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139, verse 14. You are not defined by the words of others. You are not the lies they told about you. You are a child of God, chosen, loved, and worthy. As His truth takes root in your heart, the weight of their deception begins to lift, confidence returns, peace fills the spaces once occupied by doubt. You begin to see yourself the way God sees you. Second, God restores broken relationships. Not every relationship lost in the storm will be restored. Some were meant to be left behind, but the relationships that truly mattered, God can heal. Hearts soften, conversations open, misunderstandings are cleared. Those who were misled by lies may come back humbled, ready to rebuild what was broken. And even if some relationships are never restored, God will bring new ones. People who uplift you, people who speak truth into your life, people who love you for who you truly are. What you thought was an irreplaceable loss becomes an opportunity for something greater. Third, God restores what the enemy stole. The enemy's goal is always destruction. He wants to steal your joy. He wants to rob you of opportunities. He wants to keep you from living the life God planned for you. But what he stole, God can restore. Lost time, God redeems it. Broken dreams, God breathes new life into them. Wasted years, God turns them into a testimony. I will give you a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. Isaiah 61:3. God's restoration is not partial, it is complete. He replaces mourning with joy. He turns loss into abundance. He transforms despair into hope. Will you receive God's restoration? But here's the key, you must be willing to receive it. Too often people hold on to their pain because they are afraid to hope again. They cling to the past, they mourn what was lost instead of embracing what God wants to give them. But restoration requires faith. Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing, now it springs up, do you not perceive it? Isaiah 43:18-19. What was taken from you does not define you. What God is preparing for you is greater than anything you imagined. Restoration doesn't mean going back to what was. It means moving forward into something new, something stronger, something divinely crafted by the hands of God. Your story is not over. What you have lost will not be wasted. The pain you feel today will one day be a testimony of God's goodness. He is restoring your soul. He is restoring your relationships. He is restoring your opportunities. He is restoring your joy. Trust his timing and watch as he turns your loss into a victory that could only come from him. Do you believe that God will restore you? Comment below. God will restore me, as a declaration of faith. But the most incredible thing is, God doesn't just restore you. He turns your story into a testimony that will impact thousands of others. 5. God uses your story for his glory. 600 to 700 words. Have you ever thought that your pain could become a source of hope for someone else? It's hard to believe when you're in the middle of suffering. Pain feels isolating. It seems meaningless. You wonder why God allowed you to walk through such deep betrayal, such loss, such heartbreak. But what if I told you that your story is not just about you? What if your wounds were never meant to be wasted? What if your testimony is the very thing someone else needs to hear to keep going? And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. Nothing in God's hands is wasted, not one tear, not one moment, and not one heartbreak. Your story, no matter how painful, no matter how messy, is being woven into something far greater than you can see right now. What was meant for harm, God is turning into a testimony of his faithfulness. God does not just restore what was lost, he amplifies it for his purpose. Think about the people in the Bible whom God used. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery and falsely imprisoned, but God used his suffering to save an entire nation. Job lost everything, his wealth, his health, his family, but in the end, God restored him and made his story a testimony of unwavering faith. Paul was imprisoned, beaten, and persecuted, but his letters, written from captivity, are still transforming lives today. The very things the enemy used to break you will become the foundation of your greatest impact. Your story will be a beacon of hope to those still trapped in darkness. Your story has power. When God begins to use your story, it often happens in unexpected ways. A conversation with a friend who is struggling. A moment of honesty with someone facing the same battle you once fought. A testimony shared that reaches someone on the verge of giving up. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. Your story is a weapon. Your testimony is a light in someone else's darkness. Your victory is proof that God is still in the business of redemption. The pain you endured is not just for you, it is for the people God has assigned to hear your testimony. But sharing your story requires courage. Many people hesitate to share their testimony. What if people judge me? What if my story isn't significant? What if I'd rather just forget the past? But your testimony is not just about you, it is a gift meant to be shared. There is someone out there right now who is where you once were. They are battling the same pain. They are wrestling with the same questions. They are wondering if God sees them, if he will rescue them, if he will restore them. And your story could be the very thing that gives them hope. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. The enemy would love nothing more than for you to stay silent. He will whisper lies. No one will care. It's better to keep your past hidden. Your story is too messy, too painful to share. But the enemy is a liar. Your story is a declaration of God's victory. And there is nothing Satan fears more than a believer who is willing to boldly testify about what the Lord has done. Your pain has purpose. God is not only healing you, he is commissioning you. Your survival is proof of his grace. Your breakthrough is evidence of his power. Your testimony is a reminder that he is still the God who rescues, who restores, who redeems. What you thought was your greatest defeat is actually the foundation for your greatest ministry. The question is no longer whether God will use your story. The question is whether you will let him. Will you trust that he can bring beauty out of ashes? Will you believe that your pain can be transformed into purpose? Because someone needs to hear what God has done in your life. Do you have a testimony of how God brought you through hardship? Share it in the comments below. Your story could save someone's life, and that is why you cannot stay silent. Your story is a spiritual weapon, a testimony of God's victory. You have been wounded, but God has never abandoned you. You have been manipulated, but God has opened your eyes. You have lost much, but God is restoring everything, and now your story will bring glory to his name. Every battle, every tear, every dark night, it was never for nothing. God was working even when you couldn't see it. He has led you through the fire, and now he is bringing you into freedom, healing, and purpose. What the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. Genesis 50:20. Your testimony is a weapon against the enemy and a beacon of hope for others. Never underestimate what God can do through your story. If this message spoke to you, hit the like button and subscribe for more powerful biblical encouragement. Do you want more people to hear this message of freedom? Share this video with friends and family. God is not done with you yet. Your story is just beginning.